Toast Lord, evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about the prompt?
Hey, I mean, I used to believe it myself. Then I started looking into the evidence and things for myself and changed my mind on it. So I used to believe it. I understand why people do, but not anymore.
And what changed your mind?
The biggest piece was probably obviously the fossil record. The biggest like individual piece of evidence, though, would probably be like endogenous retroviruses.
And just to clarify, you're saying that you believe that evolution is a lie.
No.
You agree with evolution,
Yes.
and you're saying that the reason why you agree is because of fossil records.
The fossil record's one of them. Like the at least the young Earth creationist model doesn't explain it very well. But the bigger point I would focus on would probably be because it's just easier to talk about would be endogenous retroviruses.
Okay, and what about them? Like, as far as evolution being the base premise of how haploids turn into diploid cells, how has the retrovirus information proved that to be true?
Yeah. So, I mean, you do know what endogenous retroviruses are, right?
I know what viruses are and how they affect prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and I understand the theory that it's suggesting under evolution. I understand the base premise of it. I'm
What do
asking
you
you, how
mean?
does this prove, how does this prove that haploids turn into diploid cells and that prokaryotes engulf one another to create a eukaryotic cell?
Oh, I see. So you're going all the way back to abiogenesis to not talk about ERVs.
Um, I'm starting at the beginning because there's only two cellular form types for all of living things. You either function like a prokaryote or a eukaryote. It doesn't matter if we're talking about dogs or wolves, so-called humans or plants. All life falls into these two cellular form types, which is the basis of evolution. So when you're saying going all the way back, well, this is a theory and a premise for all life forms. So we would have to start with everything that would cover our basis, which is the cellular form type.
Okay, so let's just say I concede and say I don't know. Let's say that's the case. What's the better answer?
What do you mean you don't know? You don't know
I
what?
mean,
I'm asking you, how does this prove haploids turn into diploid cells? And you're saying you don't know? Is that
I
what you're
mean,
saying?
ERVs aren't related to that specific
So
phenomenon.
I'm asking you, the title on the screen says Evolution, the biggest lie ever told. When we look at every single theory that is suggested under evolution, how does this prove that haploids turn into diploid cells when that is what the theory is trying to prove?
Well,
That
it's
means
kind of like you're saying.
endosymbiosis
It's kind of like
out
if
of
you were saying like,
Africa, Eve gene theory is trying to prove that prokaryotes engulf one another to create eukaryotic organisms,
so I'm not
organisms with
talking about.
introgress genes. So when you're talking about the retrovirus and then you're talking about fossil records of what when there's two cellular form types?
I'm talking about endogenous retroviruses in the human genome. You mentioned genetics.
Yep. And
So
so-called
how
humans
what
have
is the
introgress genes and are eukaryotes, but there were prokaryotic organisms on the planet prior to eukaryotes coming about. So when we look at our cells and our biology, I'm talking about my people, our cells out of the 150 trillion cells that we have, they mainly function like prokaryotic cells. That's not the case for you. We don't naturally produce animal proteins and enzymes like you. Our cells don't stem from the same embryological origin. So that's what I'm saying. We have a biochemical substance that coats our cells. Y'all don't have that.
what do you mean? What are you talking about?
So again, all life forms on the planet boil down to two cellular form types. My people's cells, it's been proven by several psychiatrists, neuroscientists, geneticists, biologists, evolutionary biologists, and I would even argue synthetic biologists based off of what they're saying, that we are not the same species. Our cells don't stem from the same embryological origin. Harvard
Okay, you're
geneticists
saying
also
you're
proved
saying
this. Go ahead, man.
you're saying we. What do you mean specifically
Again,
by
my
my?
people, People that
What?
look like me and share my embryological origin are not the same species as everyone else outside of us because our cells stem from a different embryological origin. We're composed of prokaryotic cells, and y'all are composed of eukaryotic cells. Y'all share genetics with multiple organisms. Y'all are not 100% human. You have chimpanzee DNA, you have cow DNA, you have dog DNA, you have cat DNA, but it's never been proven for so-called Black people anywhere on the globe where our genetics is connected to being connected to animals and unnatural plants, microorganisms, and insects. That's only the case for y'all. Asians, so-called Asians, can be considered YT, especially in this country. So-called Mexicans can be considered YT in this country. So according to the what we're collectively choosing here, when it boils down to the races, you're not your race, your genetics, you're your genetics and your biology. So
All
according
right.
to what
So
the
this
let me
took.
finish, okay? According to what the scientists are saying about me and you, because you asked me, so I'm giving you an extensive explanation, right? Our scientists, whether BLK or YT, are saying we're not the same, starting with our embryological origin.
Which scientist specifically would you cite?
Okay, I'm finna move on to the next guest because I named some to you. Dr. Richard King, Harvard geneticist David Reach, Edward Bruce Bynum, T. Owens Moore, Dr. Ann C. Brown. I can't pronounce her last name, but the first name is an evolutionary biologist, Ella, Dr. Ella. And those are the ones that I can name offhand. Dr. Layla Africa is another one because these are people that are well versed in the anatomical differences. Joe Biden, his committee for his lawyer committee, the leader of that group or that committee, her name is Kristen Clark. Kristen Clark referenced Dr. Richard King to basically state that so-called Black people and YT people are genetically different. This was also proven on what's his name, Tucker Carlson, his TV show, which is backed by the government. You can Google the whole entire spill. I can put it up later on the board for you, but I answered your question, so I need you to answer mine. How do we go from haploids to diploids, since you're saying that evolution is true?
I just want to say that took a wild turn. That was crazy.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for playing. Next guest. All right. If you can't answer my questions with science extensively, don't request up. All right. So, Greg, evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about the prompt?
I don't like it. That's
Okay,
how I
this
feel.
isn't about opinions. How do
Well,
do you have any
you said how
science
do
to
I
back up
feel?
how you feel? Do you agree with it or not?
Oh yeah, I feel like it's absurd. I feel like it's wrong.
Okay, do you have any science to back up your claim?
Yeah, the vast majority of scientists in the biological and genetic fields of science, the vast majority of them,
Which are
and
what?
would say that the idea that all of us, that would be Black people and YT people and Asian people and every other person on the planet, has an ancestry that goes back to a common ancestor. And I just want to say there's something remarkable about what you've done. I mean, I hear Christian creationists all the time, saying, no, no, no. Of course, human beings are separate. We're separately conceived. But I've never heard somebody say, not only are we separately conceived, but like all of you other people, except us special people, are
What's the
from
common
some other
ancestor?
evolutionary line. It's
What's the
just, you're
common
such an
ancestor?
obvious racist. It's just
What's the common ancestor of all people? You're on mute. Go ahead and answer that.
a single cell.
Which is which cell?
I don't have a name for that original
So then
cell.
you don't know the common ancestor?
I don't know its name.
Okay, so then how can you tell me that we have the same common ancestor when you can't even tell me what the common ancestor is? Thanks for playing. Let's see. Who's next? Like, and the first thing that came out of his mouth was, I feel. This isn't about feelings. This is about genetics and biology. This isn't about racism. This is about genetics and biology. So if you're coming up here with feelings, you're going to be disappointed. All right. So, Ape Proof, go ahead. Evolution, the biggest lie ever told.
Hi there. I don't think evolution is the biggest lie ever told. I think it's a pretty ingenious idea that was kicking around for a while in the 17th and 18th century, and then got solidified to like reconcile all of these different really confusing things scientists were seeing. They were seeing fossils of extinct organisms. They were seeing wondering how organisms are so perfectly adapted to their local environments, and they were seeing trying to understand why there were groups of organisms that seemed to have shared characteristics. And Darwin said that descent, a common ancestry, was the link that naturalists had been subconsciously looking for. And I think it was a really good answer.
You know, Charles Darwin was uneducated and he didn't go to school.
No, he dropped out of medical school, but he did and was interested in being a clergy member. I don't know if he actually ended up going to clergy school at all. But no, he didn't finish medical school, but he did have an education, I believe, at Cambridge. But I'd
So
have to
he
double
didn't,
check
so
that.
he wasn't a doctor, right? So his work wasn't accredited or peer reviewed or anything like that,
No,
right?
no, his work was on the origin of species, was peer reviewed by the Royal Society.
Hmm.
So yes, it was
The
peer
Royal
reviewed and he was
Society.
educated.
The Royal Society. That was the name.
Of the British aristocracy, so kind of ran with that crowd. But it was kind of the
Interesting.
esteemed scientific authors of the time. But it doesn't sound like you think that they're a legitimate scientific authority.
Well, the thing is how can someone back you up and you don't have a degree? You're just someone in the field. You're just someone that is talking, right? Because when we look at the James Hutton theory, 75 years prior to that, it would have debunked evolution.
So this was
Deep
at a time
time,
before PhDs were manufactured in the same way that
uniformitarianism.
they
I'm
are.
speaking. Give me a
No,
second,
but you
please.
interrupted me.
Um, I was actually still speaking, but go ahead.
Sure. So, two things. One is he was educated and well respected by his peers. That actually one of the reasons they gave him primary audience over Alfred Russel Wallace, who actually was proposing natural selection at the same time as Darwin. So, was there favoritism? Was there bias in academia? Sure, there always has been. But Darwin was a very well respected member and published lots of other things, not just on the origin of species.
Right.
And so,
He
on
was
your point
also
on,
He was
sorry, go
also
ahead.
a Freemason as well. That's been documented and proven. And like I wanted to say, or like I said before, James Hutton theory debunked evolution 75 years prior to Darwinism even being a thing. The same things will continue to happen on this planet with all organisms until something unnatural takes place to the environment. So again, let's talk about the prompt here, right? Evolution and how haploids turn into diploid cells has not been observed by any scientist on the globe, whether it was Darwin or um, James Hutton or all these different scientists that have been coming out with these theories for as long as we've known. Even scientists today, to the mega per second, have never observed in nature for haploids or autotrophs to turn into heterotrophs or for prokaryotes to actually turn and evolve into eukaryotes through engulfment. We've seen this modeled in labs in vitro, but we've never seen this happen in nature. So, how could this be taking place in nature when we've never observed it? If you were here of like earlier when the other guy was speaking, like most people say, well, we can look at fossil records. So how can we look at fossil records but still not be able to prove a cellular engulfment?
So your point brings up three main points for me. So first is that over the course of biological history of evolution, there have been some really fascinating, rare evolutionary events in which things do make a particular jump forward. And that's exactly consistent with what we expect if evolution has been over the course of a million years. There's some events that are particularly rare, and we may not happen to be looking in the DNA of cells exactly when they're happening. That doesn't mean they're not even occurring at this very moment. It just means that they can be relatively hard to observe. But your specific example of the transition from, and I'm not a genetics expert, I study the evolution of behavior and ecology. So, I'm not claiming to be a total expert on the genetics, but I do teach human evolution. And, we do see, for instance, the transition from haploid to diploid cells in bodies every single day. This is occurring. And I don't think there's any leap there to help us understand how an organism could transition when we see that process occur all the time, every day. So
In
I'm not
what?
totally sure.
Can
It
you
feels like a
explain that
gotcha.
process to me? How we see it in humans every day, from micro to macrocosm? You're off the app, so we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Haploidy cells came first, and then we had a chromosomal shift in them. And I'd have to do a little more research to specifically study. I don't want to speak. I like to
Wait,
speak within my expertise. So,
right, but you said that
but
we
you're
see it
pointing
happen
out.
every single day. So, where do we see that model today? Haploids turning into diploid cells,
We see transfer of chromosomal patterns within meiosis specifically.
which only happens with eukaryotic cells, right?
Yes.
Right.
I don't know.
So again, y'all have genetic material that is shared with multiple organisms, and our people it's never been genetically or biologically proven that we produce naturally animal proteins and enzymes.
This
Our
is just what
DNA is
happens
not
in the
connected to
process of
unnatural
fertilization, though.
organisms, unnatural animals, because we can look at the biochemical substances that we both have, right? With the neuromelanin versus in vitro neuromelanin versus in vitro pheomelanin and eumelanin versus the five basic natural melanin types that we see prokaryotic organisms have. Prokaryotes are organisms that have a single set of chromosomes. All of their genetic material stems from one embryological origin, so they are 100% that organism, right? Lions don't share genetic material with other organisms. They are 100% a lion. But when we look at cats, cats have introgress genes. They share genetic material with snakes. Same thing for penguins. Penguins are eukaryotic organisms. They share genetic material with seals, with birds and fish. They also struggle to feed their children and to survive in their so-called habitat. So again, how did all of this genetic material that doesn't naturally fit together within an organism, how does nature introgress genes, infuse genetics together to create organisms that don't come from biogenetic processes?
Sure. Would you like me to give you the answer I'd give to a friend of mine, or would the answer I'd give to a
I
student?
just want you to give me the truth. It doesn't, I'm just going to introduce the next guest.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted there. So I'd say the main thing is that you're conflating a lot of different scientific findings. You've seen the studies about the introgression and discovery of genes through common descent. And what it sounds like you've taken that to mean is there's, penguin DNA in snakes or snake DNA in this. And rather, what you're picking up on is the scientific literature describing how certain sets of genes have been conserved and inherited through the common ancestor. So I don't think the results you're describing say what you think they're saying.
Can you answer my question, how haploids turn into diploid cells, please?
Sure. Through meiosis and fertilization is the best answer I have
If
for
that
you.
is only a process for eukaryotes, how is it a process for prokaryotes, considering that they're the first life forms? They would have engulfed one another, right? This is what endosymbiosis is saying, that one prokaryote engulfed another prokaryote to create a eukaryotic cell. So how would it be meiosis if meiosis is only a process that happens with eukaryotes?
I'm not sure I'm seeing any inconsistency in what you're saying, but I'm really interested in your point about when the last common ancestor was. And the last interviewee, the last panelist, whatever you call it, was tracing it back to single cell, and it seemed like they were talking about the last common ancestor of all cellular eukaryotic life or something. But I mean, our last common ancestor of all humans probably lived closer to 75, 80,000 years ago. And then the last common ancestor between humans and any other species was probably 6 or 7 million years ago. So I'd love to talk about that.
Could you just answer my question? Eukaryotes undergo meiosis, and you said that that is how the engulfment took place. And I just explained that it is not a function for a prokaryotic cell. So that means that what you just said didn't answer my question.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think the sentence, your expression of the problem totally makes sense, and you're dumping a few different
Okay,
terminologies here.
I got you. I'm gonna read you a book from my genetics text. I'm gonna read you a page from my genetics textbook. I think it's like page 12. Let's see. Like
Phoebe
page
Carnes in the comments seems like
12 or page 7.
got some good genetics information.
Actually, it's like page 25. In order to organize all of that information and fit it into each of your cells, your DNA is packaged into chromosomes. So you can think of your genome as a multi-volume how-to guide, with each chromosome being a volume that belongs to your set. Your genome is contained in 23 chromosomes, and each cell contains 2 sets of these 23 chromosomes, right? Chromosomes are thread-like strands composed of DNA, right? Most prokaryotes only have one circular chromosome. When copied, it is passed on to daughter cells. They're explaining the functionality of prokaryotes and how it differs from eukaryotes, right? The basis of this theory is how prokaryotes engulf one another. If it is not within their genetic expression to engulf another species, how in the hell did we observe this to ever happen when there's no DNA, there's nothing within the genomics to say that it would create something outside of its species when it has a single embryological origin? They only pass information to the daughter cells. They only make copies through binary fission. They make replications through vertical gene transfer.
I would love to pose this question to a geneticist, but there's been really fantastic instances of genetic introgression in which viruses are able to splice together DNA from different things. But I think, in short, I don't think what you're reading in the textbook poses the question you think it does.
I'm telling you that it says prokaryotes only one singular chromosome. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They have a single set of chromosomes, a single embryological origin. If this engulfment that you came in here talking about was true, it would not produce a eukaryotic cells because prokaryotes don't engulf. They make
Two
copies
things.
through vertical gene transfer from old pole to new pole. So you said meiosis, which
Yeah, I
prokaryotes
did.
don't undergo meiosis. So I'm letting you know the function of the cell. But
Oh,
I got you. Go ahead and land, and I'm gonna get to the next guest.
for sure. So one
Yeah, because
is I would.
geneticists, actually, I have one more thing that I wanted to add. Geneticists believe that the homologous pairs of chromosomes in humans started as one set. That's the haploid that I keep asking you about. And the entire set was duplicated. Okay? So, again, I'm just driving it home to you that a prokaryote will duplicate itself. It will never
Yeah.
duplicate a eukaryotic cell. So, how did y'all get on the planet?
So I don't think you're using the terms correctly, first of all. And second of all, we see those duplications. I don't know. You're misattributing quotes to me. I never said the word engulf in particular. So
You
I don't.
said endosymbiosis to begin with, and then you brought up meiosis. I asked you, how does a prokaryote engulf one another to create a eukaryote? You said meiosis, and I said that is a function for eukaryotes. So I'm low-key helping you, and I shouldn't be, by telling you the functionality and reading it to you from a textbook. If I'm not a credible source, I'm reading it to you from a doctor that shares your genetics, right?
You were reading the
Yeah, and they're
straightforward
saying
definition
that
of the
a
genetics from the
prokaryotic
textbook.
cell
However,
creates it. Look, all right, I just ask that when I'm talking for you to just let me get it out, and you keep over talking me, right? If I say 1 second, I'm just saying 1 second. But as I'm talking, you're over talking me. Don't do that shit. I asked you a simple question, how haploids turn into diploid cells, and you didn't give me the right answer. You told me the functionality for a eukaryotic cell. You don't know what you're talking about. All right, so Angel, evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about the prompt?
I disagree with it.
Why?
We just seen a lot of like animals that evolved over time to, even from the same species, evolve over time in different environments because they have to survive, natural selection. So they have to survive and they, their physical appearance and the way they use their bodies and their physiology will change because of the scenery. That's why I believe evolution. Evolution is true when it comes to animals like birds and bears and stuff like that. Insects and viruses too.
Which birds, which insects, and which viruses,
I
considering
mean,
that there's, give me a second to respond to
oh,
you,
my apologies.
please. Give me a
My
second,
apologies.
okay? All
My
right, you
apologies.
said a lot of things, so I'm just responding to each thing
Okay.
each thing that you said, all right?
Yeah,
So
okay.
which organisms are you talking about? Evolution is talking about two cellular form types, right? Some of the organisms on this planet have introgress genes. They're not 100% the organism that they're being called, right? Celery does not come through the same biogenetic process that romaine does. Celery is a introgressed organism. It is man-made, right? So there
Yeah.
are several animals, insects, plants, and microorganisms that are man-made, right? And then we have the ideology of man making things, but then the people that are considered to be human have an introgressed genome. So who spliced DNA to create so-called humans to be on the planet? That's what evolution is trying to prove between haploids and diploid cells. Your background is extremely loud. I'll just let you know that.
Oh,
Your
mine.
yeah.
Oh wait, can you hear me now? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So which all right, prime example. Well, let me go from the viruses prime example. We've seen COVID, regular COVID. It did a very detrimental damage in 2020 and 2021, 2022. It evolved pretty much and made COVID too. It build antibiotics and just became a stronger virus. And we still had a cure, or more so not a cure, but to have something to withstand it. But it evolved over time. We've seen that when it came to that was one of the viruses, many viruses that evolved over time. What else? Animals. Uh, what's a good one? Bears. We've seen bears. Bears come from the same species or group, but because of the way their environment and the way how Earth changed throughout the years, with tectonic shifts and stuff like that, their environments, and they have to, we have polar bears and grizzly bears and panda bears and sun bears and black bears. They're all from the same species of bears, but because of the environment around them, they would have to change. So they evolve to live in that environment, to survive in that environment. So like what? Polar bears have white coats. That way they can be a top predator. That way they can hunt their prey without being spotted. Grizzly bears, prime example, their coat is like a brownish to blend in with the trees. And panda bears, I really don't know about panda bears, but they're, big fluffy bears, big fluffy, and they, they're vegetarian because where they're originated, or well, where they're at is mainly plants, and so they don't eat meat at all. So we see many evolved creatures from the same species evolved because of their environment and where they live. So that's what I mean.
You didn't answer my question respectfully. I asked you which bears, right? Because Asiatic bears have introgress genes. Polar bears are most likely to have introgress genes as well. But when we look at certain elephants, right?
Yeah.
Elephants came through biogenetic processes and are prokaryotic. Now there's some question around the Asiatic elephant. They can all be considered elephants all day long. The elephants don't know that you call them that. The crocodiles and the alligators don't know that you calling them that. It comes down to the cellular function and how they express their genes. That's how we tell which cellular form type it is. We can look at ants, right? There's thousands of different ants. They're all ants, but these scientists will say that they're not the same species. How are they not the same species if they're all ants? So what we actually see modeled in biology is that these animals are in different phases of their so-called evolution, right? Or their conscious expansion. They're all the same organism, right? unless the genetics has been tampered with. When you talk about pheomelanin, eumelanin, allomelanin, and pyomelanin, these are melanin types sometimes that can be spliced or cut into. You can cut into an introgress and make pore formations in a pyomelanated cell. I always talk about how robotics is something that's been tampered with since the 9th century. I also heard you mention something about the viruses and the C19. C19 is the same virus that we've seen on this planet since 545 AD, Justinian and Byzantine era. A lot of the bacteria, a lot of the pathogens, a lot of the viruses that we're seeing today are the same ones that we came in contact with when you people came out of the caves. So this has been depicted in stone. He left on his own. I didn't drop him or anything like that. I didn't even know he was gone until now. But these are the same diseases that have been plaguing us ever since these people stepped out of the caves. Ever since we've seen y'all be depicted in stone on all fours with hypertrichosis and with vestigial tails. Y'all are the only people on this planet still being born with hypertrichosis, vestigial tails, and genetic mutations that are connected to ground level UVC radiation. All right. So the thing is that there are organisms whose cells can be spliced into. You can add genetics into a genome with just a single pore formation. So how did celery and kale and potatoes get on the planet? If these things have been here for thousands of years, how did they get on the planet? Who the hell or what the hell was splicing and introgressing genetics? Because when we look at these people and we look at the way that their cells function, we look at their physiology, we look at their behavior, we look at their skin, the skin cells, and what it breaks down to, every single venereal disease on this planet is connected to their DNA. We never knew what antigens, we never knew what blood types, what any of that was until we came in contact with these people. If we're the same species, you wouldn't have wiped out 2 continents plus others alone with just your seminal fluids. That doesn't happen between elephants, like I hear y'all talking about. Y'all keep talking about these different animals, but when they procreate with each other, they don't invoke hemolytic and zoonotic diseases on a biological level like we see happen with y'all when we lay down and try to procreate with y'all. Y'all wiped out 2 continents plus others with just your semen. So y'all like being the same until we start talking about the DNA. Like I said, he left on his own. I didn't take him down. Who is this? Phoebe. Evolution,
Hey,
the
how
book
are
of
you?
slide we're told. How do you feel about the prompt?
I heavily disagree with the prompt.
Okay, go ahead.
I wouldn't mind talking about, I know a question you've been asking since I've been in here listening has been about haploidy and diploidy and the sort of evolutionary transition between the both of those.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's quite a few studies that have actually looked into this. The vast scientific opinion on this at the moment is that diploidy and sex evolved simultaneously, or at least
Can I
very
need you to
closely
say
to one another.
snacks? Because that will flag the live.
Oh, sure, yeah. That diploidy and SMEX evolved simultaneously, or at the very least pretty close to each other. The reason being that haploidy is prone to deleterious mutations. It's much easier for an organism to fall prey to deleterious mutations under haploidy, whereas diploidy provides a little bit more of a buffer since you have 2 copies of those chromosomes coming together. So that just makes sense. And I can give you some papers for this if you'd like to look into it more.
Can you explain how prokaryotes engulf one another to create a eukaryotic cell when it's not in their genetic material to do something like that? It's not in their genetic material to express that.
To express what?
It is not in a prokaryote's genetic material to engulf another cell like itself to create something like an entirely new species, which is the base premise of evolution. It's going to copy itself, right?
Well, there's
Prokaryotes
predatory
make
prokaryotes that engulf other cells all the time.
predatory.
Yeah, predatory
prokaryotes that engulf.
prokaryotes.
Can you explain the engulfment?
Well, that would just be their form of eating, I guess, is the closest thing I can think of to compare it to. But they would engulf other organisms. Those other organisms just wouldn't survive. But what endosymbiotic theory proposes is that a predatory or at least foraging prokaryote at some point devoured another, and that other prokaryotic species did not die, and was able to live inside that
Take
host.
you off for that. We have to use TikTok friendly language and we have to say unalived. I already have a restriction on the live that hasn't even been lifted yet. So when TikTok actually run this back and they say that your live does contain this information, taking you off the live will help protect it. So you can request back up in a second, but you got to use TikTok friendly. Best humor, evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about the prompt?
Hello. First of all, I just want to say, can you see my camera or no?
All right, y'all block that. Block whoever. Yeah, best humor, block. I already knew that that person was gonna try to do that. Let's see. All right, so anybody that wants to, yep, it was facts trolling. So the thing is that when y'all are talking about animals, right? Animals are composed of cells, right? In order for the engulfment to take place, we have to understand it on a cellular level. So we have to pay attention to the two cellular form types, right? The last guest was talking about an engulfment, and then she said that the organism that was engulfed would not would unalive. So how would this bring about a new organism? I just don't, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Like, how would this engulfment explain the arising of new species? A prokaryote gets its genetic information from the sun because they are autotrophs. I don't know. I'm confused. Like, you see what I'm saying? You're saying I should let her up, but I asked her the question and she just explained endosymbiosis. She didn't tell me about the engulfment. So how about this? Pump, how about you come up and accept that invite right there and you come tell me? Arnav, how about you come tell me? You see what I'm saying? How about y'all come up here and tell me? Destin, accept that invite, all right? How about y'all just come up here and talk to me? So Destin, evolution, the biggest lie ever told. You see what I'm saying? You're off the app.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I disagree.
Yeah, I know. Why? When you're off the app, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, don't leave.
You're mixing things up. I would say we're all Homo sapiens. No matter what race, there's a very tiny difference in DNA. So yeah.
There's a what? Can you elaborate, please, and like talk? Like, can you explain yourself, please?
So we all are Homo sapiens.
But Harvard geneticists prove that so-called non-African people are the only people that have Neanderthal DNA, that that's not the case for so-called Black people. Dr. Richard King, Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum, Dr. N.C. Brown, and Dr. T. Owens Moore also prove this to be true. The book that's pinned on my page, Why Darkness Matters, which is written by 4 BOK neuroscientists. Dr. Richard King is a psychiatrist. Joe Biden and his lawyer committee team has backed everything that he said. So it's already cats out of the bag. We already know that so-called BLK people and everybody outside of us are not the same species because we don't share the same embryological origin. So I'm interested to hear your response after that on how we're still the same species when we don't share the same embryological origin.
All right, so I actually wrote a whole like 2 paragraphs down to like speak it to you. So you said like whenever I'm like scrolling off the app, you can't hear me.
Yep.
Ah, that's unfortunate. So yeah, I won't be able to do this. So I'll just get off.
Okay, I think that's a cop out because you were never gonna come up unless I sent you an invite. So that's interesting. I had to wait for the restriction to pass. No one's ducking Phoebe. Like, y'all, I want y'all to request up. That's what I want. And I want y'all to answer my question. I want you to answer the base premise of evolution because it's funny how y'all are requesting of saying this, but no scientist on the globe has ever been able to explain how haploids turn into diploid cells in nature. We only see it happen in vitro. We don't see it happen in nature. Go ahead, Phoebe.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep going with what we were talking about last time, or do you want me to answer a different question?
No, I want you to keep going. Just keep it TikTok friendly.
Yeah, I'll try to be a little bit more careful with my language. I do apologize about that. So I think where we left off was talking about the endosymbiotic theory, which I think I kind of said my piece on that. I don't know what. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns about that explanation?
You can just go ahead and explain your premise with how haploids turn into diploid cells in nature. Can you give me a natural like phenomenon where we see this take place?
Are you saying outside of like a lab setting?
Yes, in nature.
As far as I don't think we've observed it outside of a lab setting. I do know that Tuzel et al. Has a whole paper written about this, about the evolution of haploidy to diploidy. I'll also say that there is not a very clear line between prokaryotes and eukaryotes as far as haploidy and diploidy. There are many eukaryotes that are haploid. In fact, some populations have haploid and diploid subpopulations within their populations. So it's really not out of the question to think that this would be a natural evolutionary process.
Again, but when we look at eukaryotes of any background, whether they be pyomelanated microorganisms, if they're plants, animals, or insects, there are organisms with introgress genetics, and nature does not introgress genes. So, how did these organisms get on the planet?
I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Can you clarify, please?
Cats share DNA with snakes, or penguins share DNA with seals, fish, and birds. Humans share DNA with chickens, dogs, cats, sheep, goats, lice, ticks, celery, potatoes. How did all of that get within the human genome with some of the things that I named are 500 to 2,000 years old?
Oh, well, that's just because we all came from Luca. That's just nested hierarchy.
How did we all come from Luca when we weren't able to observe the engulfment? How do we know that the last universal common ancestor was anything? Again, when we see these two cellular form types that don't share the same embryological origin.
Well, Luca came far before the endosymbiosis theory. But Luca is, we can very easily show Luca because every single organism on this planet has genes that they share. As you just said, every single organism on this planet shares genes with all the other organisms, and we know that genes are only passed down through heredity. It's the same way that we can just do a DNA test with people or with horses or anything else, right? Like, this is the exact same technology, just on the species level. So it's a very easy way to show that every life form is related to each other.
Just because a rabbit shares DNA with a bioluminescent fish does not mean that they came from the same embryological origin. Not if we have a branch of science known as synthetic biology. Not when there's genetic engineering, hybridization, and introgression in different mediums to fuse genetics together. All life would not be connected through biogenetic processes. So I understand what you're saying, that all life does, or according to your theory, all eukaryotic life does share DNA with each other, but it's not through natural biogenetic processes. A cat has introgress genes. A biogenetic process is not introgression, right? So a lion is 100% a lion because all of its genetics come from one embryological origin, right? When prokaryotes split, they split asexually through binary fission and vertical gene transfer, meaning that they will make copies of themselves, right? You're never going to see one organism all of a sudden turn into another organism. That doesn't happen because there is no recessive genes for that organism. It's 100% that thing, meaning that all of its DNA is dominant. So there's no recessive gene, no alleles to trip off the replication process. I'm not understanding.
Well, I do believe there are plants we've observed that have actually reproduced, plants that are a new species that cannot reproduce with the parent population. But I think the other question I would kind of like to ask here is, are you, by introgression, are you implying that there's evidence of gene splicing across organisms?
Yeah, that would have to be the case. I mean, spontaneous generation, a type of spontaneous generation is introgression, because these organisms are arising from so-called inanimate life or inanimate objects. They are held together, their chromosomes are held together through in vitro neuromelanin. So it's not neuromelanin, right, which is the only biochemical substance that is condensed sunlight and that can condense sunlight. It's the fake version of it. So the first thing that you implied is that there are plants. I get it. Evolution is explaining that we have prokaryotes and eukaryotes in existence. Like, again, y'all are saying, yeah, plants can do it. Yeah, dogs can do it. Yeah, this organism. I'm talking about the cellular form type. Which plants? Are these biogenetic plants or introgress plants? Are we talking about celery or are we talking about ginkgo? Right? So it boils down to how the cell came about, how the organism came about, right? If we observed it, if you're saying it that confidently that we've observed it like that, that means that it probably has introgress genes and is being spliced in a lab as we speak. If you can observe it, you can do it in a lab to observe. Other than that, you're not being able to prove this in nature for all life forms on the planet.
Oh, I mean, I guess I would just ask, because when we think about gene splicing, there are like very obvious scars within the genome that we can look for to know if genes have been spliced or not. Because there's buffer zones that you have to put in order to actually integrate something into the genome, right? You can't just put a gene from one place to another and expect that to work unless there's a buffer zone. So I guess I would ask you to point to those for a majority of species and how that would explain relatedness. That's what I'm not understanding.
That's what I'm trying to get from you. How do these organisms share DNA if their cells have been spliced?
But I'm asking you to cite
examples like, well, I've given you examples like rabbits that share that are born bioluminescent, and it's because their cells have been spliced with bioluminescent organisms. Cats have spliced and introgress DNA. Dogs have introgress DNA. Cows have introgress DNA. Chimpanzees, every single animal and insect and plant and microorganism that y'all share DNA with through incomplete dominance as an entire species has been spliced and genetically engineered. Because you cannot splice our cells. You couldn't have come from us. It's genetically impossible for a so-called black woman, a neuromelanated woman, to create an in vitro pheomelanated or eumelanated child. We've never seen so-called black people produce chemically and biologically a YT person. With the BLK woman produces 48 different shades of herself. The albino is still one of the 48 shades because that skin still synthesizes the sun. The hair still points towards the sun. It's still neuromelanin. We can still see it throughout the entire integumentary system. But when we look at so-called albino Dravidians, that's a different skin texture, different hair, different melanin. So I hope, I'm not looking at the comments right now. I hope no one is going to say albinism, because we can clearly see throughout the entire integumentary system that these people still wouldn't stem from the same embryological origin. How come we haven't seen that type of evolution? Why haven't we seen an Asian woman give birth to a black woman? Why haven't we seen a black woman give birth to an Asian child chemically?
Okay, there was a whole lot there, but one thing I was caught up on, and I didn't want to interrupt you, I wanted to let you finish. Are you saying that there are wild rabbits that have been born with bioluminescence, or are you talking about rabbits in a lab that we know have been spliced by scientists?
So you have hares and then you have rabbits, right? You have organisms that, again, are prokaryotes. All of their genetic material comes from one embryological origin, and then you have rabbits that have introgress genes. We can talk about rabbits, but again, rabbits that we're talking about in a lab are not 100% of anything. So that's why I named sheep. That's why I named chimpanzees, mice. celery.
Yeah, but I'm asking because I asked for you to cite evidence about like gene splicing outside of lab settings, right? Like in wild types.
I never said
And
I never claimed that genetic engineering was taking place outside of a lab. My whole argument is nature versus genetic engineering.
right, but that would mean that wild organisms are not genetically engineered,
I
right?
know that. That's why I'm
Okay.
talking to you about prokaryotes and biogenesis versus eukaryotes and introgression. Right. I'm talking to you about organisms that have a single set of chromosomes, like lions versus cats. I've been saying that this whole time. I know that there are wild animals, and I know that there are animals with introgress genetics. How did they get on the planet?
I guess I'm just confused by the hang up here because lions and cats are both diploid and they both share genes and they're both closely
But
related.
it's
And then
not
lions are
through
also closely related to
biogenesis.
canines, for example, as well.
Again, but a wild rabbit would not produce a rabbit with in vitro pheomelanin or eumelanin. It's going to make an entirely a copy of itself because it is 100% that all of its genetics are dominant, right? But when we look at a rabbit, right? A rabbit has introgress genetics, meaning that it could share DNA with squirrels, it could share DNA with rats or mice, it could share DNA with other organisms. It is not 100% like we see this other animal that has a single embryological origin, right? Same for Merkles and cats, right? There's even a type of Merkel, the leopard spotted Merkel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Merkel, the cat, right? Not a cat, but it's a feline, right? It is not the same as a cat with slitted eyes or slitted pupils, excuse me, and the tongue sharing the same physiology with snakes. So cats share DNA with snakes, right? But the Merkel does not. It is 100% a Merkel. It doesn't share DNA with other organisms to be the organism that it is.
Snake tongues are highly specified. I would really appreciate if you would cite a source about any cat or feline species, I suppose is what you're saying, any feline that has a snake tongue.
Again, cats. Like, I don't understand if we're understanding each other. I'm telling you the organism, so you should be able to understand its anatomy, its biology, right? If we're going to talk about it. I do. I've studied the biology of lions. That's how I know they're not the same as cats. So I'm talking about their anatomy. We can look at the fact that cats share DNA with snakes, and then we can also point out the fact that they're the only feline with pupils that are slitted. Lions' pupils are not slitted. The Mercal's pupils are not slitted. Pumas, cougars' pupils are not slitted, but we have cats are the only feline with slitted eyes, and they somehow share DNA with snakes who also have slitted eyes. When we look at their tongue, cats also hiss. All right, so that's a behavior that we see shared with snakes, right? When we look at the cat's tongue is very familiar with ginkgos, and you would know how they express their genetics. You don't need a paper for that. It's just what the organism is. If we're studying something, a study or an experiment, then I understand why you're asking me for a paper.
Yeah, I mean, there are other wild feline species that do have slitted eyes. Bobcats, ocelots, servals would be examples. Big cats, I don't think do because they're more diurnal hunters. If I'm not mistaken, slitted eyes are more for nocturnal hunters, so they can let as much light in as possible, whereas diurnal hunters would have the more circular pupils. But the reason I was asking for a paper is because your claim is highly specific, right? You're not saying, oh, they're similar to this. You're saying they have the tongue and eyes of snakes. There are very specific diagnostic criteria that we would use to talk about snake eyes and snake tongues. And this is not a claim I've ever heard in my years of being a biologist. And so that's why, maybe not even a paper, just like someone else, like any research that has been done in this, I would just be very curious to know about it.
Yeah, there are several synthetic biologists that talk about how cats share DNA with snakes and other organisms. Snakes is one of the main ones that I've actually seen quoted. If you don't want to talk about cats, that's fine. But there are several plants on this planet that that are man-made. The entire cruciferous vegetable system is man-made. Mosquitoes have introgress genes. They need genetic material from other organisms in order to have children. Under symbiotic relationships, that would be known as parasitism. So technically, if you need genetic material from other organisms in order to have children, you're not 100% yourself. You need other organisms to survive. How did you get on the planet? If you need these other organisms to survive, how did you get here? When your survival is based on everyone else. Again, according to evolution, everything shares DNA with each other, but we don't see that when we're looking at the cellular form types, and we don't see that expressed through phenotype or behavior.
Oh, I would heavily disagree. We don't see that expressed in phenotype or behavior.
Okay. So again, we can go tit for tat, but I'm naming like several different things at a time, and you're like picking one or two. So let's just talk about vegetables, right? How did kale get on the planet?
How did kale get on the planet?
Yes.
Presumably the modern kale was from, well, isn't kale also, I believe it originated from the wild cabbage, right? And then we humans kind of raised it and artificially selected for it to have particular traits.
Okay, so when you're saying that it comes from cabbage, right? Yeah, cabbage.
I think it's a wild cabbage, yeah.
Got you. Yeah, cabbage has introgress genes. There's really no such thing as wild cabbage.
Well, it may not be called a cabbage. I'm not a botanist. I wouldn't know.
But you are a biologist, right? And you understand allomelanin. You understand the melanin that corresponds to plants and what can be spliced into, because you are a biologist, which means that you look at cells, which means that you study life, right? So you don't have to be a botanist to understand that allomelanated organisms can be cut into and observed. So when we look at organisms like cabbage and kale, like you said, artificial selection, that's what would have been the latter half of it. But to begin with, starting with the cell, how did it get on the planet when it doesn't share genetic material with other biogenetic plants?
Are you asking how did kale get on the planet?
All right, Phoebe,
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna come clean. This is getting on my nerves, and I'm trying to keep it respectful. I'm talking about there are several organisms on this planet, whether microorganism, animals, insects, and even so-called humans, that have cells that can be cut and spliced into. We have seen several animals, insects, plants, and microorganisms on this planet that have been spliced into existence. Okay, it is not natural for a cow and a pig to find each other attractive for it to be within the human genome. So how do these organisms share genetic material with each other when they also have introgress cells? That means that their embryological origin did not come from nature. There had to be something or someone that had to have spliced the cell to bring it into existence. If it didn't come from natural biogenetic processes, I don't understand how you're not understanding that. Cats are not natural organisms. They're not. They did not come from nature. My 10-year-old cousin can tell you that. That's basic. Dogs are not natural, right? Most of your pigeons are not natural, right? Kale, cruciferous vegetables, carrots are not natural. You have strawberries versus wild strawberries. They don't share the same genome naturally, right? We have polar bears. They're most likely eukaryotic spliced cell, right? Penguins. I've named so many things for you. So you're like, are you talking about kale? Are you talking about penguins? Are you talking about that? I'm talking about every single thing that is eukaryotic and has introgress genes. How did it get on the planet?
Well, sure. If you're talking about domesticated cats, dogs, rabbits, kale, etc., then that's going to be artificial selection. Polar bears and penguins do not fall into the artificial selection category, though.
Cool. So if it's artificial selection, you're saying that this was artificially selected after the cell was created. I'm asking you, how did the cell get on the planet?
Is that what you're asking? Okay, that's a very different question than what I thought we were going down.
I've been asking that the whole time.
Okay, if you're asking about abiogenesis, I mean, that's one thing. Are you talking about the origin of cells? Because if so, I'm not a biologist who studies abiogenesis. My specialty is in wildlife management and genetics and ecology.
Aries. I hope I'm saying your
I'm
name
really
right,
trying to
sis.
understand.
I know you are. I know you are. And this is why I always cite my sources for the 4BOK scientists that proves, several scientists that prove the difference in the development of our brains, the prefrontal cortex. Dr. Amos Wilson proved that the psychology and the development of a so-called black child is far exponential than anybody else on this planet. Like I said, Joe Biden, his committee, for his lawyer committee, the leader of that, Kristen Clark, cited Dr. Richard King to express the genetic differences between so-called blacks and whiteys, and it's because of the psychological development. One single cell splits all the way up through 16 clumps of cells. We see the marula and the brain forms. Our brain does not form from the same embryological point, and this is the reason why we see the curriculum, the way that we see suited towards your people, and how we're doing far more exceptional things under the type of melanin that we have in nature, outside of the curriculum, outside of schools, because that shit goes against our anatomy. So I'm not trying to be funny. I'm actually sitting next to all of my books where it talks about the genetic, biological, and anatomical differences between me and everybody outside of my species. We're not the same species, because when we first came in contact with y'all, it wouldn't have made sense the way that you wiped us out, man. Not with something as simple as seminal fluids. Every single time when we lay down with y'all, it's been proven. Hemolytic diseases, zoonotic diseases, and ischemia gets invoked because we're not the same. It is genetic incompatibility, biological incompatibility. So, like I said, I've been trying to talk to you about evolution, and I don't really think you understand my point, is that the origin of the eukaryotic cell is only genetic engineering. That is the sort
I don't
of
think you can prove
spontaneous
that though.
generation. Okay, so I'm going to ask you this again before I get to the next guest. Give me a second, user. You're saying that all these organisms came as a byproduct, or excuse me, you're saying that these organisms have been artificially selected by so-called humans over time. I got you with that. So I'm going to ask you this question again. What is the origin of the cell if we see that these things have been artificially selected, if it's not biogenesis?
Domesticated animals have been artificially selected. I made that very clear and evident.
Okay, so again, domesticated animals are artificially selected. So pigs, cows, sheep, goats, right? And then we can even take it into plants, right?
Yes.
Right. So when we look at the embryological origin of a pig cell, a cow cells, right? The egg cell of a human, everybody outside of so-called black people, right? Their cells all stem from a different embryological origin than prokaryotic life forms on this planet.
Well, prokaryotes don't have embryos. So I wouldn't know what you mean by embryonic origin of prokaryotes.
Prokaryote is an organism that has one single embryological origin. It doesn't mean that it's one big glob. It's referring to the cellular function. That's science explains the functionality. So a prokaryotic organism has a single set of chromosomes and is 100% that organism from having one embryological origin. They don't share genetic material with other life forms or other organisms. But we can look at eukaryotes that have genetic material that is shared between other organisms. It has never been proven for so-called black people to share DNA with animals, because for the simple fact that we don't naturally produce animal proteins and enzymes.
Oh, collagen is one that is shared across the animal kingdom.
We don't produce collagen because we don't have the same protein synthesis. We don't produce the same
That's
proteins.
just not true.
If we produce the same proteins, wouldn't we have phenotypically the same hair? Wouldn't our hair express phenotypically to be the same if it was the same melanin and the same protein?
Our hairs have the same proteins, but they can express differently. Like what's your
How?
skin made out of if not collagen?
Can I add to this or not?
Give me a second. How would our skin, everywhere there is skin, there is hair, whether you see it naked to the eye or not. How would our skin and our hair be composed of the same proteins and express the same melanin if we're not composed of the same biochemical substances and we don't have the same protein synthesis? If we don't synthesize proteins the same, how do we have the same protein in the end when we don't see it phenotypically presented? When we don't see a phenotypically expressed, my bad. I was looking for the word.
No, you're fine. I don't grant that not all humans produce the same proteins. Like, I would be curious to know where you are getting that information from.
I'm asking you a question. There's 8 different types of melanin, 5 that are basic and 3 that are synthetic, right? So when we're talking about the integumentary system, that is synonymous with the type of melanin that your cells produce, right? To create the hair and the skin that you have. You are who you are because of your DNA and your biology, right? So we don't naturally produce the same melanin, or else we would phenotypically present the same in our skin. That pertains to our texture, how we actually absorb the sun, interact with the sun, and the biochemical substance that we naturally secrete, or excuse me, that we naturally produce.
Right. I mean, it's well known that proteins take on different forms. This is one of the bases of evolution because there's only so many proteins that amino acids can create because there's only so many amino acids. So I'm not sure where you're getting this information from. That's what I'm very curious. You said you had some books earlier. I mean, could you give me the titles of some of these
I
books
already
that you
have. That's how I know I'm gonna get to the next guest because I already have. I literally have quoted Why Darkness Matters, every single scientist that wrote the book. I've talked to you about different scientists and what they've said. I've read excerpts from my genetics textbook, and you just keep asking me questions. Oh yeah, it is. We do see it. So where are you getting that from? I'm not, look, don't ask me for proof when you're just sitting there saying we do see it. So user, evolution, the biggest lie ever told, man. How do you feel about the prompt? Yeah, exactly. She just wants to respond just to respond.
Well, first of all, I'm going to just say that we are the same species, but other races are mixed with something else. That is true.
Who are you? What do you
What do you
mean?
mean? Who am I?
What do you mean when you say that we are the same but mixed races? Who are you? What do you mean by that?
I'm black, obviously.
Okay. So you're
So
saying
I'm saying that other races are mixed with Neanderthals or Denisovans. Homo erectus was the same common ancestor which spread around the world. You know what I'm saying? And other races are mixed. So evolution did happen, but you are correct that other races are mixed with something else, but we are all the same species. You have to stop saying this whole we're different species or whatever. I'm not gonna lie, you don't sound intelligent.
So we're the same. So you're saying that me and you are the same because of what?
I mean, if you're going by race,
No.
then we're the
Me and
same
you are the
race
same because of what? Why are you saying me and you are the same?
because we're both human.
But you
We're
just
both
said that
Homo
everyone else
sapiens.
was mixed with Neanderthals and that you don't have the DNA. So I'm gonna ask you again, what are
I'm not
me and
white,
you?
so I'm not mixed with Neanderthal, but
Okay,
I'm
I'm
saying
gonna
other.
ask you a question, user. I'm not talking about YT people, right? And I'm not talking about so-called Neanderthals. I'm asking about me and you. You said that me and you are the same. So what does that make me and you? I'm just asking a clarifying
It
question.
makes us human.
So humans have the same genetics and it is the same shared DNA. They're saying that humans share 99.9% of the same DNA with chimpanzees. You're saying that you and me and versus them are not the same, but you're saying that me and you are human.
When you say versus them, you're talking about YT people.
Everybody else, it's not about YT, it's everybody outside of so-called black people is a different species, and their cells stem from a
Well,
different
no, we're the
ability.
same species,
Look,
but
give me a second to fully respond to you before you cut me off, especially if you're asking me a question, please. Go ahead.
well, I would say that you and I are the same. And yes, I guess by your logic, other races are different. Yeah.
Okay, so what were you up here about, or did you change your mind, or what? Because you told me I was wrong.
I
You cut
mean,
me
I
off.
believe in
So
evolution happened. I don't think that's the biggest lie ever told. I don't
how did
also don't know what you're talking
evolution?
about. Talking about what, like abiogenesis, cats are related to snakes. I mean, I don't know what that's all about.
Okay, so how do you
People
believe in
asking me to show
evolution?
my
All
arm and
right,
stuff, like,
user, can I ask you a question, please? Can I
yeah.
respond to you? All right, so you're saying that so-called this shit throwing me off, man. So-called black people are the same, and you now believe that everyone outside of us is a different species, but you believe in evolution. Can you explain that? What does that mean?
I don't believe other races are different species. I'm saying you and I, as black people, are pure Homo sapien, while other races are Homo sapien mixed with other things. So we're all Homo sapien. Does that make sense?
So we're all human, so you don't agree with me. So you didn't agree with my last point.
Yeah, you're saying I agreed with your last point when I was originally saying I never agreed that evolution was the biggest lie. I'm saying evolution happened.
But you just
Never said
said,
I
according
agree.
to my logic, that you look,
Yes,
explain
that
it
you're
for me. Go
correct. Other
ahead.
races are
Go
mixed.
ahead. I got you. Go
Okay,
ahead
I
and
got
explain
you.
your
I
point.
got you. I'm explaining it. I'm explaining it. You're saying, right? Because you're going by black people are the originals, other races are animals, right? So if you're going by that logic, right? Yes, black people are the original people. We are the original humans which existed on Earth before any other race. The first Europeans, the first Asians, the first Pacific Islanders, or the first North Americans, everybody was black. Or maybe before they crossed the land bridge, they were black. But regardless, we originally were the original people. Other human species such as Neanderthals, Denisovans, even Homo florensis existed on the planet at the same time that pure Homo sapiens existed. So I'm saying that thousands of years ago, they mixed, and this all happened on other continents, not in sub-Saharan Africa, not even in North Africa, the Middle East, Europe, Asia. They mixed and they created other races even after Homo sapiens then again spread out of Africa. So there were multiple waves out of Africa meaning that other races are majority Homo sapien, like I said, but they are mixed with something else. So we are all human. Evolution happened. Make sense?
So you're saying that we're the original life forms, and that these, or excuse me, the original so-called humans, and that these other people came from us, right?
Yeah.
So when we're looking at it on a biological or on a cellular level, we possess neuromelanin. All of our cells are coated in a biochemical substance known as neuromelanin. This
Just
is produced
melanin. What's
by, give me
neuromelanin?
a second, all right? Give me a second, all right?
My fault.
Neuromelanin is a biochemical, it is a type of melanin. It's one of the 5 basic types, all right? And it is a biochemical substance that is condensed sunlight in its composition, and it can also condense sunlight. This is the reason why our people can actually absorb the sunlight and through black body radiation, through biosynthesization, all right? When it comes to everyone else, the reason why they undergo acute body radiation and get sunburnt is because they have a different type of melanin that only allows them to interact with UVA and UVB radiation. This is the reason why we're seeing 40,000+ people in Europe right now getting smacked by the sun, because their cells don't synthesize ground level UVC, right? We've seen this radiation be ground level since 2015. So how did a neuromelanated woman create a in vitro neuromelanated, pheomelanated, and eumelanated organism when it's not within her genetic expression to do so?
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like you're adding neuromelanin and vitro melanin. Can you actually explain to me what neuromelanin actually affects? Like, is it skin, hair? Is it everything? Because I would just tell you it's all the same. All melanin is the same. There is no neuromelanin or everything else you just said. Every race has the same melanin. It's just they have less. We have more because we're the originals. The reason why they're getting smacked by the sun is because obviously they're damn near not indigenous to Earth. So that's why a little bit of sunlight, hurts them. But it's all the same. Everyone has the same amount of melanin, or
So
not the
you
same
don't know
amount.
the
We all the same
melanin
type.
types. You don't know the melanin types at all.
It's
And
all
which
the same.
DNA, give me a second. You don't know the melanin types and which DNA it corresponds to, but you can tell me that they're all the same?
I mean, then tell me what neuromelanin corresponds to.
No, see, this is what you're doing. You're trying to tell me that I'm low-key wrong about what I'm saying when you don't even know the 5
Then
basic
educate me.
melanin
I'm
types.
asking.
No, because I asked you a question, and if you didn't know, you could have just said, I don't know, but instead you said it doesn't matter and that we all have the same melanin. So no, I'm not going to educate you.
All right. So then you're not doing this for educational content. You're doing this for
I'm
a
not
point.
here to teach anybody. My premise is on the board. You requested up saying you disagree with me. Now you want to be educated?
I mean, I want you to educate me on
I'm not
whatever
here to
that
educate you
neuromelanin
as a
is.
grown man. You
Okay, well,
requested
my
up
answer is
because
still the
you did.
same. All the
Thanks
melanin
for
is still the same. And
Thank you. Now it's all about, oh, I want to be educated. Not when you came up here telling me that I was wrong. And then you told me you need to stop mixing these two things together because you really don't know what you're telling. Boy, get the fuck on. All right, that reverse psychology shit, try that with somebody else, man. You could have just said, I don't know. Can you enlighten me? But you said, no, I'm going to say that's not true because I don't know about it. So no, it's not true. Yeah. Bye. Thanks for playing. Explain it better next time. All right, Ski. Evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about the prompt?
I think it's a lie.
Why?
Cause like if animals was evolving, why are they still not evolving in front of our faces?
All right, do you have any science to back up that claim?
I
Like to
mean,
elaborate on that?
it's just pretty simple. Like they said animals was evolving, so why are they not evolving?
So you don't have any science to like elaborate and express
No,
like what
I
you're
don't
saying?
need to.
I got you.
Yeah. Nah, that's it. That's all.
Okay, all right. So let's keep it like this, y'all. Let's bring science and facts to actually back it up. When I say explain to me how you feel about the prompt, I understand why y'all are coming up here with feelings. I'm gonna change that. That's my bad. Please have science to back up with whatever you're saying, right? If you feel that way, have science. I don't want to talk about feelings and shit like that because you can't expand with a conversation when it's just based off of feelings. So I respect everybody sharing their frequency and how they feel, but let's keep it scientific, right? Let's keep it fact-based. So user, I see you're back up. Let me see what AO wants to say since you've already spoken.
Hello.
Evolution,
Hi.
the biggest lie ever told. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Evolution is the biggest lie ever told because it doesn't make sense. And if it was true, we would have like 100% the same DNA with the chimpanzees or whatever that they're claiming we
that's
came
not how
from.
that works.
All right, please know what you're talking. Let him get it out.
Well,
Let him actually
how does
speak.
that work then? Please explain.
No, go ahead and explain with science why you feel the way that you feel.
It's not more about feeling, it's just more about logical and understanding that if evolution was true, one, how are science able to completely put it into whatever, because it takes millions of years, they say. So how are they able to actually confirm changes were happening over 1,000,000 years? Who's documenting it? Doesn't make any sense.
Yep, I got you with that. I just want you to have science, like to further explain that. If you don't have it, cool. XZC, Lilo, go ahead. Evolution, the biggest lie ever told.
I mean, I think for the most part, evolution would be true.
Go ahead and explain.
I mean, from different species, and that's actually a very good point he made about how do we tell that evolution is real, even though it's went on for millions of years. I mean, there's multiple things that we can trace back millions of years from Earth, from rocks. Why couldn't we do that with organic things?
Literally, we can trace back scientists, there's Dr. Ella, I just can't pronounce her last name, but there's a documentary that came out not too long ago, like 2 weeks ago, and it's titled We Were Wrong About Evolution. And she talks about literally how so-called African people or people of African descent, don't get caught up in the title, we're just talking about our people, right? Stem from a completely different embryological origin than everybody else. She said that out of her mouth because they were able to observe the cells and were able to make the assumption that our DNA is not connected to any Homo neanderthal, Homo sapien, none of the hominid-like, humanoid-like species that we've seen discussed in evolution theory. And that's not the only scientists that have said that. David Wilcox has also said that, and he got in trouble for actually talking about Simon Toko and how his cells actually regenerate. We also see Henrietta Lacks and her regenerative or immortal cells. These things have never been connected to people outside of us. So when it comes to evolution, we've never evolved into y'all, and y'all have never evolved into us biologically, chemically, genetically, even starting with the embryological origin. So I see where y'all are coming from with this. Let me see. Ajita Stone, Evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about the prompt?
My opinion is based on you. A lot of the stuff that you were saying as far as evolution, you want scientific facts. And a lot of things is not always scientifically proven. Like a lot of things that has happened on Earth, a lot of scientists can't even explain why these things has happened. A lot of scientists cannot come up with logical reasons and experiments to why things has happened. So for you to want a scientific reason or scientifically proven reason why these things are real, to me, that is limiting your mindset. Because technically, I believe that human beings were, number one, the Homo erectus beings were the first beings on Earth, and human beings are the descendants from them. And technically, I truly believe that it was the white man that was evolved from the Homo erectus, because black people don't look anything like monkeys. If you look at a white man, he has the same image of a monkey. And I just think that you are not the only person that I have met that always wants scientifically or want everything to be scientifically proven. And a lot of things that is going on Earth right now, even scientists are struggling to find ways to figure out why certain things has happened. So what they'll do is they'll come up with a reason. So I understand that you want scientific facts, but everything that is going on, everything that has happened in this universe is not scientifically proven. A lot of things man cannot prove. Because if man can prove, if scientists can prove, then how come scientists can't figure out how strong our pineal gland is? How come scientists can't prove on how we can go back to the original way of life?
I don't understand what you're saying, because you're saying, how can scientists prove these things? And they have proved those things, and those things check out to be true, whether it is a YT or a BLK scientist observing it. And I respect what you're saying. I don't know how long you've been listening, but I've been asking every person that comes up here, how did haploids go to turn into diploids when we've never seen a scientist observe it? That's my whole premise. How do y'all know y'all got on the planet from prokaryotes? So I don't know how long you've been listening, and I don't know if you understand the basis of evolution. I take it to the basis. Scientists are trying to prove that autotrophs turn into heterotrophs, but they've never observed it yet, that they're all grouping life together. So I'm actually on your side. I just don't know how long you've been in the live to actually see that.
I want to throw one thing in here.
Let her respond. Let her respond.
No, I just no, because I know a lot of people that are scientifically driven. And my thing is that a lot of things that is going on Earth and has always been going on in Earth, a lot of scientists cannot come up with those reasons. And I think that the way that human beings are evolutionized is because man is keep tampering with the way that we are. Because we wasn't always human beings. You know, human beings was created. So my thing is that I just don't like how a lot of people always want scientific facts.
But that's
Like
what you're
life is
saying, though. You're saying that you believe that these people have their cells has been genetically tampered with. That's science. The genetic engineering and introgression, hybridization, and the different types is what explains that. So I understand what you're saying, but science is the study of the natural world. If we're natural to the planet and to the cosmos, we should be studying science because science explains spirituality. It explains the things that we can't see. This is our ancient knowledge. Imhotep was the first documented multi-genius. This is our information. So you're right. We haven't always been in this density, and getting back to the density that we're supposed to be in is the bridge from physical to metaphysical. It doesn't matter that what they're calling it. It doesn't matter if they call it a pineal gland, a foot, a thumb, or a strand of hair. How does this thing function? That's what it means to know thyself. And our people always modeled that through science. When we look at every single piece of stone, everything that we left for our own people in stone, it leads us back to science. The pyramids, all megalithic structures were created and built through cymatics, vibration. If we're collectively choosing this language and we're subscribing to it, the best way that we make sense of our reality is through science. These people are not natural to us, or not natural to the planet, and not natural to the cosmos. How do we actually break that down based off of the density that we're in right now? And she left. I didn't take her off. I don't know if something happened to her phone or whatever the case happened, but this is what I mean by we as so-called Black people have to value each other and respect each other enough to hear each other out. I said, I respect what you're saying, and she left the panel. You see what I'm saying? And I'm agreeing with her. I'm just structuring more of what she said, and she left. So we don't even value each other's energy, but you can talk to me about the science. Well, I can explain the science behind why we no longer value each other, and it's because of these people. Give me a second to explain myself, okay? We got to get to the point to where this shit that we see, we start structuring it with something, because this shit is tapping our ass. These people are medically and psychologically evaluating us, and they don't have functioning pineal glands to do it. What's my source for that? Dr. Richard King. That's our people. What is you talking about? These are this is our genetic expression to know, to enter and understand everything about our planet, ourselves, the universe, the cosmos. That's what universal law and hermetic laws are talking about. It's our great connection to the womb. What better way to explain that shit through our DNA and through our genetics? So y'all got to understand how deep this shit actually goes. You are who you are because of your DNA physically. What functions the functionality, what actually functions your DNA and functions the cell is morphic resonance. That is consciousness. Neuromelanin is connected to solar beings. Solar prominence is solar DNA, solar, like, what do you mean? We're not spirit beings, we're soul beings. And what's the explanation? Science. Neuromelanin. We got 4 of our own people plus others that's talking about how the soul is the neuromelanin, y'all. This shit been out since the 70s. What is you talking about? I'm in my 20s. YT scientists, Asian scientists, Hispanic scientists, and BLK scientists are talking about how neuromelanin is the consciousness. It is the core of consciousness. Y'all gonna make me get my books, man? Like, what is we talking about? Because I don't understand why our people come in here with that shit. Oh, you talking about science, but science can't explain how our pineal gland. How did you know about a pineal gland then? Where did pineal gland come from, my sister? Where would these words have come from if it wasn't for science? How were we able to build the pyramids if it wasn't for science and sacred geometry and knowledge of self, knowledge of the universe, electrons and protons? Chemistry. Chemi means study of the black dot. That's the pineal gland you talking about. Y'all got to stop playing with me, man.
Can I ask where your sources are from or not?
Look, I'm finna get my source right now. Number 1, y'all see all the books that's pinned on my page. All right. Why Darkness Matters, written by 4 BLK scientists. The scientist that I'm quoting right now, Dr. Richard King, he's a neuromelanated psychiatrist. That's number 1. Number 2, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, Morphic Resonance, posted on my page. Number 3, Dr. Layla Africa. All right. Very well versed in the anatomical and physiological differences between so-called YTs and blacks. I'll get you another one. All right. The developmental psychology of the black child, Dr. Amos N. Wilson. You see what I'm saying? I'll give you another one. Dr. Shumsky literally talks about the Western medicine and how all Western science and medicine is built off of the standard of a YT 45-year-old man. What is y'all talking about? Don't ask me for sources if y'all not coming with them. Like I said, that shit fire me up each time when a sister come in here and vomit and leave. I actually used to follow that sister. I'm very familiar with her content. So I respect her, number one, as an elder and as a sister. I couldn't even speak. Nigga left. How do you know all the shit you've been talking about for years, Ajita, if it wasn't for science? I'm confused. How can you talk about the hidden consciousness? How can you talk about the stars? How can you talk about our connection to the stars and consciousness if it's not for science, man? Who is
So what do you
this?
think we should be
Kevin
teaching in
Thompson,
schools?
Evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How you feel about the prompt?
All right, never mind.
Kevin, you're on mute. Go ahead. You haven't spoke, so I'm just trying to get your point of view. All right, user, go ahead.
Like, what do you think we should be teaching then, since, you know, all of this stuff that you claim is hidden is now being revealed to light? Like, what do you think as a Black community, like, we should be doing to better ourselves with this knowledge that you're claiming that we
Learning
should
our
have known?
genetics, because our genetics was what they're keeping from us. That's what they don't want to unlock. The dormant or the junk DNA is the unlocking of the neuromelanin that's been dormant. Ground level UVC, what the scientists are talking about is how the sun is emitting a gene mutating, germ unaliving, and detoxifying wavelength that is affecting all life forms on the planet down to microorganisms. Radiation penetrates everything, so this wavelength that's actually hitting our cells is unlocking the dormant etheric acid. Excuse me, the deoxyetheric acid, which is the dormant neuromelanin, right? The deoxyetheric acid, the etheric acid is the biochemical substance that is functioning each of our cells. And like I said, morphic resonance by Dr. Rupert Sheldrake talks about that. It's not necessarily the proton or the electron, it's the morphic field behind it. Because when we look at something as simple as photons, when you remove the field from a photon, it's no longer a photon. Right. So what actually functions your body is the consciousness. So right now we're too dense. We're focusing on a system. We're focusing on everything outside of our conscious ascension, which is why our reality is faceting the way that it is. We can look at Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza and all the brain scans that proves the intensity of the heart and the mind and the brain and heart coherence. If you focus on this system, you're going to keep manifesting the shit that we're seeing. If we focus on nature, our unity, relying on the universe instead of paying for water, learning how to tap the earth for water, learning how to be one with nature again, learning cymatics, fuck the homes, fuck the rent, right? Because we can build pyramids again. We can build mounds again. We can build sustainable societies and communities again. We never needed these people. These people need us. That's the point of the lie, that these people are living off of our G side. Every single thing that we see across the globe, we've built. It wasn't it's not about the YT man and the fact that we've been so-called enslaved by him. He learned how to enslave from the Arab man. The Asian man was the first man to have us in chains. The Asian man is first also in their genus.
What do you
Then
mean?
next in line, according to their genus, is the Dravidian man. I'm talking about the origin of their genetics. The origin in which they came, according to their DNA, would be the so-called Asiatic man.
But having
This is
us in
their
chains, you mean by what? Like,
okay. So what I'm explaining is like these people come from a different embryological origin. Their genetics, the order in which they came, is we can also see the synonymous what's the word expression of so-called slavery, right? We see the Asian man enslaved our people first, the Dravidian man enslaved us second. Last in line is the YT man. So they've all been, for the last 4,000 years, collectively been working together to enslave our people all across the globe. That's why I don't make it about YT people. I make it about all of them. 25 to 28 million of our people are in chains in the Middle East, and it's by the Arab man. His genetics don't biologically or genetically align with any place on this planet. That goes for the so-called Asian and the so-called YT man.
Is there a
So
chance you could be wrong?
absolutely not. There's only 2 cellular form types on this planet. And there's no so-called BLK person on this planet whose genetics express like these people, but they share the same DNA and incomplete dominance with each other.
I mean, I told you it's true. Black people are the original humans. I already agree with you on that. I know earlier you got confused saying I needed to be educated on neuromelanin and stuff. I was more so confused because I've never heard the term of neuromelanin and all these synthetic biological. I haven't heard these terms, and I actually went to school for biology. So it's not that I wanted to be educated on that. I just wanted to know exactly where you're coming from. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I think part of what you're saying is correct in the sense that we're the original people, but the Asian man enslaving us, if you're talking about the Arab slave trade or the Romans enslaving us, like, I think we have to be specific.
Yeah.
And you were talking about establishing a black state, which I think all black people should do anyway, but that's not focusing on biology. We should be focusing on politics. So
I never said that. You interpreted
we don't
what
need
I
the
said.
white
We should
man.
go back
I
to
agree.
nature. I said we should go back to nature. I'm talking about getting away from this system as a whole. I never said create a black state.
I mean, getting away from the system is black people getting away from white people.
That's not politics. That's just nature
That
and
is
universal
politics.
law. That's not politics. Politics is patriarchal. Patriotism.
No, politics
Nature
can
is
be
matriarchal.
feminist.
All
It could
right.
be feminism led as well. I mean, it's
I'm
not
not
just.
talking about feminism. I'm talking about matriarchy. Feminism and matriarchy are not the same things, right?
I'm not saying that. Okay, I'm saying politics isn't just patriarchal. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm saying that politics is synonymous with patriarchy and it does not exist in matriarchy. Matriarchy is matriarchy. That each woman is her own matriarch, right? Because she holds the chemical key for life and is the mother of the species. It's not about patriarchy or patriotism or politics at all.
I understand the biological purpose you're talking about, but after children are born, how should black kids grow up with the black family? That is where
Matriarchy.
politics comes into involved.
It's not politics. It's matriarchy. That's what I'm saying. I don't think you understand what matriarchy is. It is a feminine led society. You are 100% your mother's child. Everything gets
Yeah.
passed through the matrilineal. Everything is matrilineal passed
Yeah.
off to the offspring through to the daughters. Damn, I'm getting tongue tied. So there's no politics.
I feel like
Politics
you're
is
confusing
actually
politics with
nepotism.
male led. I feel like that what you're
Okay.
saying is literally female led. That's female led black state. That we're talking about the same thing. You're just
We're not.
changing the
I'm not
wording.
talking about black anything. Black doesn't exist in matriarchy. Everything already
Oh, really?
we're the only people. We're only being called black because we're in this system.
Because we're
We were
surrounded
not
by
called.
crackers.
I'm gonna come clean. If you can't let me like get it out, I'm gonna just get you off the live and I can just do this shit by myself.
Shit, my fault.
I got you. I'm just letting you know we're over talking each other. The comments can't hear. So what I'm saying is that I understand where you're coming from. You're saying that it can be feminine led. It will be. Prior to patriarchy was matriarchy. They came for the matriarchs that were here. We can look at present day Angola, the Dahomies, pretty much all matriarchal or all societies prior to patriarchy was matrilineal and matriarchal. And that's why you see a lot of feminine led militias and WARs is because we were the leaders. There's 14-year-old, 22-year-olds, 9-year-old women tapping the French ass 1896, all feminine militia, the Dahomies. You see what I'm saying? And that's because we led societies, and that's just one of many. But that's our natural, that's universal law. Elephants are matriarchal, dolphins are matriarchal, prokaryotic birds are matriarchal. So it's not according to this system at all. I understand you're using the words because we're collectively choosing them, but I'm talking about once patriarchy goes, the language that we're using, all of that goes. That's not going to be our like our what's the word? Fuck. Our approach. Damn. Yeah, that's not going to be our approach. It's not going to be black and white and shit like that.
So how would you fight against the patriarchy then to lead into matriarchy?
That's what I'm saying. There would no longer be patriarchy. This system has to completely go for matriarchy to take place again.
That's
It
what I'm
would no
saying.
longer be a thing. That for number one, patriarchy is already being dismantled. We've already seen the production of oil go a month and a half without being produced in Kuwait. We're already seeing that they're ushering in AI. The Department of U.S. Education is done for. We're already seeing the money is running out. We're already seeing the U.S. postal system will be gone by 2027. So all across the world, they're ushering in martial law, trying to use TikTok friendly language that's already been prominent for the last 3 years in so-called Asia and in Russia. That's making its way here as well. And we're already seeing, like I said, Europe is completely destabilized from the inside out. Because even when they were getting flooded a year or so ago, they never recovered from that. And now they're getting smacked by the sun. Street lights are melting. The streets are melting. They're not coming clean about the UVC radiation and the temperature that we're actually seeing with ground level UVC. We also see that a lot of systems, networks, and scientists that are responsible for reporting what's taking place on a solar radiative level is being dismantled because their systems are no longer working because it can't withstand the UVC radiation that is being emitted. Everything is being dismantled from the inside out. We're biggest lie ever told. Go ahead.
And I'm really short, bro. Okay.
Evolution, the biggest lie ever told. Go ahead.
So can you, cause I'm just new to like the group things on TikTok. Can you explain like what your subject is about?
It's on the screen.
So what is it basically like saying? Like,
what did you request up for, respectfully?
Well, first off, I don't believe that. Well, I don't know if you're Christian or not, but I don't think we were born as gorillas into humans or like cavemen into humans. I feel like we came from like the Holy Spirit.
So you believe in religion?
Yes, ma'am.
So when we look at which religion, like the Christian faith?
Christian, yes.
So when we look at Genesis, right, and it's talking about Adam and so-called Eve, and
yes,
how they had children, right?
Yes.
And these Adam and Eve were the only two people on the planet, right, at this point,
Yes.
because God
Yes.
created them, and
Yes.
then they had children, right?
Yes.
They had sons, to be exact, right? So
Yes.
how, if it was only boy children that was on the planet, how did more people come about from two boys?
From God's creation.
How did everybody else come about? If these two, it doesn't even matter. Like they could have been two girls, a girl and a boy, two boys. It doesn't matter. They would have been siblings, right?
Yes.
So how would everybody have came about when these two people are siblings?
From the Holy Spirit and believing that there was someone there.
So two kids. And God did what from what happened?
He created them together and created more upon more.
So these children these other people didn't come from Adam and Eve and Eve's children. They were created after the children were already on the planet. So we didn't come from Adam and Eve. Only Adam and Eve's children came from Adam and Eve. Everybody else came from God.
Yes, I believe that's true.
Okay, I got you with that. So then how did God create people that can't naturally take his natural sun and terrestrial radiation? Why would God create people that can't synthesize the sun?
So I'm just reading the comments. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, go ahead and answer the question, please.
I think that it was a strong belief that everyone that was around that 100% believed in what happened, and I think that God created the rest of the human beings in the world.
So God created Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve had the children. So the only people that so all right, so I'm asking you, why did God create people that can synthesize the sun and then other people that can't?
that's still a thing that is still being answered that we'll never know.
So why? Look, I'm gonna come clean. This is why we bring science and not mysticism, because you're not really answering my questions. You're just saying because of God, because of God, because of God, because of God. And I'm asking you, why did God create people that cannot synthesize his natural sun? The sun is actually destroying their cells and deteriorating their body from the inside out. Their YT people and everybody else undergo acute body radiation because of the sun. They can't stand outside longer than 20 minutes because because they can't synthesize the sun, but so-called black people can. So why did God create people that can synthesize the sun and people that can't?
I don't know.
All right, so let me get to the next guest here. Make sure when you come up here that you have science, please. I'm not doing I don't knows, maybes, mysticisms, and shit like that. This is about science backing up your claim, what we can observe in nature to be true. Do not come up here unless you have science that can back up your claim, please. All right. Let's see. AIM Global Media. I don't know if you meant to come up. I see you buffering. All right. I don't know. Dango, you got to be able to back up your claim with evolution. I can't hear you, AIM Global. I'm going to take you down and then just request back up, okay? Dango, you just need to be able to answer my question with science. If you feel like you can hang, then request up. I don't care about that. Just don't mention that on the mic, though. Let's see. The Bible is not no event in the Bible has ever been historically proven to be true. Not one. Not one. Yeah. Please watch your words. AIM, it's taking you a minute to actually load in. I would say swipe out of your app and then come back. Okay, Dango. So yeah, y'all, I'm gonna wait for AIM to come back. But yeah, we seen the biologist in here earlier. I actually can't wait to download that and clip that, because every time we have a biologist or any doctor, anybody with a doctor type background or whatever, they can never explain the base premise. She literally just asked me questions the whole time. And that's how I know y'all have problems with comprehending and that frontal lobe is underdeveloped. That's why I be quoting Dr. Amos Wilson, because he proved that shit back in the 50s. So again, like, you know, I don't get it. Somebody said, I know that because the Bible is a book of allegory, not to be taken literally. Facts. Let's see. Outside of science, it is also a historical fact. Even biblically, they speak on unnatural beings. Facts. Yeah. Okay. When I read your whole thing, yeah. Let me see. Even biblically, they speak on unnatural beings. They do, but like in the sense of like mules, like the mentioning of 40 acres and a mule. A mule is an organism with introgress genes. If you type in the definition or look up the word hybrid or hybridization, you're gonna see mule is in the definition. They use mules to explain. It is an example attached to the definition. So again, that's why I'm saying, if the Bible and the Christian religion only goes back 2,000 years, how the hell was it our truth when our DNA goes back 13.6 billion years? You know, Dr. Amos Wilson, Kane.
Hello. What's
Yeah,
up?
greetings. Evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about the prompt?
I would disagree.
Okay, can you explain why you disagree using science?
Well, first, wait, are you atheist?
No, I don't. It doesn't pertain to me. Just go ahead.
Okay, I'm atheist, but I think evolution is extremely true because we literally have canine teeth. We have tail bones. What showing we probably had a tail before. There's a lot of indications of like wisdom teeth, for example. We had bigger mouths like monkeys. It's just like a lot of signs pointing to evolution.
So, evolution is pertaining to how one species brings about a completely different species, right?
Yeah.
So, how does wisdom teeth and tailbones have to do with evolution, creating a new species?
Well, I'm saying, well, just like from monkeys. Like I'm saying, we definitely evolved from monkeys.
So, evolution is a theory for all life forms on the planet, but you're making it about so-called humans and only monkeys, even though.
Well, I'm just giving that one example, but what evolution, like if you get like an organism and like put it in land for thousands and thousands and millions of years, it will eventually start evolving to where it could live there. And they start creating, it could create a new species pretty much.
So you took something out of its natural habitat and then you put it in a eukaryotic environment to its genetics, and now we're calling it evolution.
But what starts evolving to their surroundings, and then like a dodo bird, for example, they got so used to like no what's it called, predators, so they started not being able to fly, and that's like they turned to a different species.
So that's an adaptation. If they can no longer fly, that's just them no longer being able to adapt properly to their environment. How do they change to a different species?
Well, they're a different species. They're called different from dodo birds than whatever they were called before.
So the scientists can just call it something else because it's
Well, it
adapted
is
to the
something
environment.
else.
Let me
The
ask you a
whole
question, please. Let me
okay.
ask you. So the scientists can call it something else because it has lost a function. But evolution is pertaining to a genotypic change. So what within the genetics would have changed? Because you just explained to me an adaptation.
Well, its genes are completely different.
So what about that? That's what I'm asking. What about its genes are different? Different
Oh,
protein
well,
synthesis, different cellular form type, different melanin type. What about the DNA is different?
well, I don't know much about like dodo birds, but I'm just saying I know their DNA is different. I could like Google it.
Yeah, the thing is that if you're just gonna say or find a source of the scientists saying the DNA is different, but they're not telling us how it's different, that's not really answering my question. And this is the base premise of evolution, how haploids turn into diploids, how autotrophs turn into heterotrophs, and we can see prokaryotes and eukaryotes in existence, but we've never seen the engulfment or the natural biogenetic link to all life forms. That's never been proven. So I would need you to tell me what within the genome is actually changing in order for it to be considered evolution.
Well, I don't like oh shit. Hold on. I don't know much about like stuff like that, but I know there's there's like a lot of like living organisms that have like the same genetic code, proving that like they were one point they one point evolved from one species to another.
Yeah, I would like for you to explain how, because in order for it to be an evolution, because look, adaptation is a temporary change, which means that
Yeah.
when they get put back in their natural habitat, they're going to phenotypically express their natural genetics. That means that the dodo bird that you took out of its environment, when it goes back into its environment, it's going to go back into dodo bird one, according to what you're saying.
Well, yeah. Then it would evolve back
So,
to where it is over a course of millions of years, of course.
but again, listen to what I'm saying. You took it out of its natural habitat and put it in a eukaryotic environment. So that means that all the changes that we see are unnatural. And
Yeah.
again, you still haven't explained how it's genotypic. You're just saying that it is. You still don't. You're saying you don't really know, right? And I'm
Yeah.
telling you that in order for it to be evolution, it must be a genotypic change. If it is not, then that means that it is a temporary change or a temporary characteristic, which is adaptation. So that's not evolution. If we can put it back in its natural habitat and it's going to change its DNA again, that's not really a good example of evolution. That's you basically telling me de-evolution, which we've never seen animals with introgress genetics de-evolve into 100% of anything because their genetic material is shared with multiple organisms.
Okay, I think you might. I understand what you're saying about that, but I could get onto something else. You're right on that. But if we talk about living living organisms, every single living organism. That's why my brother's messing with me. Every single living organism uses the same genetic code.
And what's the genetic code?
What?
What's the genetic code?
What does that even mean?
You said, what do you mean? It came out of your mouth. I'm asking you to clarify what came out of your mouth. You said every single organism shares the same genetic code. Are you saying that every organism has the same embryological origin?
No, they all, like the DNA structure is all the same for every single.
Oh, so all life forms are the same thing.
No, they're genetic code.
Your genetics is your DNA. So all life forms have the same DNA?
No. The genetic code. The sets of rules that.
Yeah, that's why I asked you about the embryological origin. You set the set of rules, right? The embryological origin is what sets that up. One single cell splits and it continues to divide to create the organism. So that's what I'm saying. If you're saying that we all have the same genetic code, then you're saying that everything is either prokaryotic or that it is eukaryotic. And I'm going to need you to define because there's only two cellular form types.
Well, what I mean is like the genes are like instructions, right? So, and we all have the same instructions. Every single organism, like the messenger and like the RNA and all that stuff, is all the same on every single organism.
How would it be all the same if we don't phenotypically present the same and our phenotype is expressed in our genes?
Well, I'm just saying, like they all have the same. Like every single messenger is the same in every single organism.
So I'm going to ask you again, how is every single living organism on the planet have the same embryological origin and the same DNA when all life forms do not phenotypically present the same, which means that they are not expressing their genetics the same?
Bro, I don't know what the hell that means, bro.
I got you. I'm going to move on to the next guest. Dango, evolution, the biggest lie ever told. How do you feel about
that? So can I tell you, so I believe in evolution. Can I explain to you how it works, in my opinion?
Go ahead.
All right. So, basically, so when you have, a few, kids or something, or, animals, so obviously animals are going to have different traits. And in nature, the only ones that will survive are the ones with, best traits. So if traits of an animal don't allow them to survive, then that animal will die off. And that's called natural selection. And so, there's also mutations that can happen. So if a good...
F1 in the chat, we got to use TikTok-friendly language. Give it a second. Wait for the restriction to pass. Then you can request back up. All right, we got to say unalive. We can't say DIE. All right, I just lost my page because of that. All right. I want to hear what you have to say. Just request back up, and then we'll continue.
Wait, that was a good point, though.
Right. So let me get back to you. You're saying that all life forms have the same DNA, and we have the same genetic code and the same embryological origin. And I'm asking you how when we don't phenotypically present the same.
Bro, I don't even know what phenotypically means, to be honest.
Okay, so then why would you say that it's a good point when you don't even understand basic biology, respectfully? That's 5th grade science right there. I'm being respectful as fuck. We just had a senior in high school came in here a day ago, and he walked this shit down. You see what I'm saying? This is basic 4th and 5th grade science. So if you don't know, I wouldn't just piggyback off on what somebody else is saying when you can't answer the base premise of evolution. Dango, go ahead.
All right. So do you have any questions about my claim?
No, I want you to finish explaining it without using the like, you know what I'm saying, just say unalive because I heard you talk about like people having babies and shit, but I'm asking you about like how do organisms evolve into a new species from a single embryological point?
So what I was saying is, so if you take a bunch of animals of some sort, they'll all have different traits. And so the ones that have traits that won't allow them to survive will be unalived in nature. So the good traits pass on, and that's how animals evolve to be better.
So how did organisms that unalived pass their traits off to organisms that are still alive?
I'm saying that the ones that unalived are more likely going to be the ones with worse traits. So those worst traits will basically go away.
So then how are y'all still here when y'all can't synthesize the sun?
Because so it's not about like which traits, it's basically which ones will be enough for us to, stay alive or
Right, that's what I'm
like
saying.
we don't.
There's 40,000 people in Europe right now unaliving because of the sun. And we see almost 10,000 people. I don't know if it's each week or per month or whatever it is that get unalived by the sun. We see genetic
Okay.
mutations happen
Well,
according to your people, and it's strictly because of the sun.
in that.
Squasm cell, the SCC, the basal selenoma, all of that, melanoma, TP53, 1p36 syndrome, SLOS phenotype, hypertrichosis, vestigial tails, acromegaly, all of these are genetic mutations that happen strictly because of the sun, and they have never in history, not even by the mega per second to the second we're at right now, they have never expressed in BLK people. We've never phenotypically expressed these things. Why do we only see these things happen with other people because of the sun, and we're not being unalived by the thousands because of the sun? That means that we should be the only people on the planet then.
So, let me, I didn't really understand a lot of like what you were saying about like the sun things, but let me explain the Spain thing. So, out of those,
So you don't understand my question?
No, let me talk about the Spain thing first, okay?
No, hold
Like
on. You just
about the
said you didn't
40,000.
understand what I just said, and then you're trying to talk about something else. Do I need to clarify it for you? Because that's kind of rude if I'm understanding it right.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I just didn't understand like some part of it
Okay.
correctly. So maybe answering you
So
wrong.
let me put this on the screen for you. Maybe it's just because of all the words. So I'm just going to show this to you.
Oh yeah. That would be nice. Thank you.
Give me 1 second for sure. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here it goes. Right here? Yeah, there it is. This is what I was looking for. UV radiation is acknowledged as the primary cause of photocarcinogenesis. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Photocarcinogenesis. And this is what I'm talking about. Squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, melanoma. This is a direct result of UVC radiation. Tumor suppressor genes are inactivated by mutation, and growth promoting pathways are activated, leading to disruption of cell cycle progression. Anytime when we see the so-called unaliving of neurons, it is also called apoptosis. So I'm going to throw that in there as well. Then we see sonic hedgehog pathway, the SCC that's also been mentioned. Then we see TP53, which I also mentioned. And then we see all the rest of these mutations that are listed. What I'm saying is that these mutations are a direct cause of UVC radiation. These are only affecting everybody outside of so-called BLK people. According to your logic, that these organisms are supposed to have unalived off because their genetics are not suitable for the environment. And I asked you, how are y'all still on the planet when y'all can't synthesize the sun according to how your melanin interacts with radiation? Does that make sense? He left. Damn. I didn't take him off. I didn't even touch the button. Yep. I don't know if that was by accident or if he meant to leave, But that's the thing. All of these mutations that we see only affect people that are non-BLK. BLK people are not unaliving because of the sun. BLK people are unaliving because of their diet and because of being in a eukaryotic environment and because of the presence of antigens that are attached to our red blood cells. We don't naturally produce animal proteins and enzymes, but we do have antigens because we've been mixing with y'all for about 4,000 years. Y'all have been adding antigens to our bloodstream for 4,000 years. Grape used to be legal in this country all the way up until 1993. All right, there's books, Why Grape Was Legal, was expressing how these people literally wrote love letters extensively about how they were graping our children as early as 2 hours old and fresh out of the womb because they thought that our children could experience O's. And that's because they understood the consciousness and our melanin. So I'm going to also put this on the board because I know people was asking for me, asking for this earlier. Again, Joe Biden, secretary, the committee of his lawyer committee or whatever, literally used theories from Dr. Richard King, which cannot be debunked. It talks about the genetic differences between so-called BLKs and YTs. And it talks about this, but I want to put this on the screen. So we just cut to the chase here. Is it this one? Number 5, melanin endows BLKs with greater mental, physical, and spiritual abilities, something which cannot be measured based on Eurocentric standards. I'm saying David Reich, or Reek, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name. He also said that we're not the same as everyone else. I'll post the video either when I get off this live or tomorrow of the exact wording that he said because I have the video. All right. So-called non-African people have Neanderthal DNA. I hear you over there sniffing. Go ahead. Go ahead. Kane, did you leave or are you still here?
I'm still here.
Go ahead.
I'm good.
You don't have nothing to say?
I don't know. Wait, why did we like evolve to like Asians and black people and white people and stuff?
You didn't evolve. Y'all were depicted in the hardest stone known to man, Sumerian text, being on all fours with hypertrichosis and vestigial tails. There's an entity that is depicted this in stone across the entire globe in the Sumerian texts and tablets. So y'all were genetically engineered on this planet. Y'all gained bipedalism less than 2,000 years ago.
Wait, so didn't we evolve to be like when we went to Asia, right? Didn't we evolve to have slant eyes because it was so windy and cold that our eyes had to naturally be slant?
No. Y'all are incomplete dominant. Y'all are incompletely dominant, or how do I say it? Incomplete dominantly different than the so-called Asian man. Y'all share DNA, but it is incomplete dominant, meaning that it's not 100% of anything because the genetics come from multiple places. So y'all are different species amongst yourselves due to incomplete dominance. You have the Asian man shares more DNA with the snub-nosed monkey. You share more DNA with chimpanzees. What y'all have in common is the fact that y'all share DNA with unnatural organisms. That's what makes y'all the same species. The species vary amongst y'all. Y'all didn't naturally evolve because these organisms also share DNA with other organisms, and that cell goes back to genetic engineering. It's not through biogenetic processes. So evolution is a theory that is saying that prokaryotic organisms are here, eukaryotic organisms are here, and it's trying to prove the engulfment between each other, but we've never seen it take place in nature. It's just that the scientists are saying we can assume that this is the case, but an assumption doesn't make it true or natural. We've never seen prokaryotes engulf themselves to create a eukaryotic cell. It's not within their genetic expression. That's not how they function.
Okay. Well, that was a lot of high vocabulary. I'm not like the smartest dude, so. But, wait, so you're saying that Asians were, like, they didn't like evolved have slant eyes on
So
purpose?
if you look up the snub, let me see if that's all the way at the top. You can do a simple Google search of the snub-nosed monkey, and that you're gonna see why Asians share DNA with them because they have the slanted eyes that you're talking about. It's not through evolution. It's the fact that y'all have DNA that's been introgressed with snub-nosed monkeys, or you're talking about them, snub-nosed monkeys, dogs, cats, yellow, the bananas, and it's also another yellow vegetable or fruit. And this is the reason why Asian people are known to be the yellow skinned people because they share DNA with bananas.
Okay, makes sense.
But let's see. AIM Global is back. Let's see. Main 2432 is requested up. Who is this? RCPT, would you like to request up? I see that I don't know if you agree or disagree with. I watched David Reach lecture on ancient DNA. Facts. What'd you learn, Nas? You see what I'm saying? You just looked it up. Yeah, they look exactly the same. And when you look at YT people, they look the same as a lot of them share DNA with chimpanzees. That's why they look like them. You can see some YT people, they look like dogs. They share up to 73% of their DNA with dogs. We can also even take it beyond looks and even talk about the phenotypic expression of the smell. They naturally produce animal enzymes and proteins, and it's the same ones that dogs have. This is not the case for BLK people, right? And I'm just being honest. There's several scientists that are saying we're not the same. It's just that these people don't want to wrap their minds around it. You know what I'm saying? And it's in their genetic expression to not want to. Yeah, AIM Global, I wish you could come up because I would like to hear what you have to say, but it looks like your mic isn't working. Yeah, they do. They do look alike.
Well, they actually do look alike, like the snub-nosed monkey or whatever.
Yep. And let me see if I can put it on the screen. It's going to take me a minute to find that one. The snub-nosed monkey one is one that I don't put on the screen enough. And it's hidden right in the middle of my camera roll. Like,
But wouldn't that mean then the snub-nosed monkey evolved to Asian people?
so again, the so-called Asian man shares DNA with multiple organisms. It's not just the monkey. So you would have to then explain how the snub-nosed monkey naturally finds a dog attractive for it to be within their genome, or the banana, or the potato. You have to explain how these organisms found each other attractive for it to be in their genome. I don't know if this is fit to the screen, y'all, but I hope you can see it as best as possible. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, what if it was like the dog, right, evolved to the monkey, and then the monkey evolved to the Asian man?
That's what I'm saying. It's not as simple as the dog because the dog has introgressed genetics. It shares DNA with because it is a domesticated animal. It's not an animal that is here through natural biogenetic processes like a wolf, right? So a wolf has pheomelanin or eumelanin. Pheomelanin and eumelanin are on opposite ends of the spectrum, and it has a cell that can be spliced. So dogs do share DNA with wolves, but it's not because of nature. It's because of genetic engineering. So like I was saying earlier, there is an entity that is depicted splicing on this planet, and that's what the story of Noah's Ark is truly about. The taking of two animals and the splicing of DNA. And I have a picture of some of the stones. I'm trying to
Oh,
scroll to them.
do you believe in Noah's Ark?
No.
Oh, me either.
Yeah. So you have, I wish this stuff was like TikTok wasn't, that it didn't mess with the way that the screen looked. But let me see if I can find. And I have a YouTube, by the way. My main page got banned. I did have a link in my bio, but my YouTube name is in there. My latest 2 YouTube videos is just a recording audio or just like the live downloaded. And I have everything sourced, every picture put on the screen. So everything is in there from vertical gene transfer to the different mutations, different breakdowns and stuff. All of that is in the video, and I do have them depicted on there. I think I'm getting close. Yep, here they are. This entity right here is what is being depicted all across the globe. And it's extracting a pine cone, which is what the other person was in here talking about, which is connected to the pineal gland, which is the core of consciousness. And we also see the Sumerian texts actually talk about the splicing of organisms, but the rounding up of 2 organisms like we see with Noah's Ark is depicted in this one. Let me get to it. Yep, this one right here. And you can see that he's literally holding 2 organisms, right? And this is the same story when we look at the full text. We can see the name is changing from Pendar to Yaqub to God to Moloch to the Dragon King to Gilgamesh. The story of Enki and Enlil is all talking about the same entity, splicing organisms on this planet. So, yeah. Let me see.